Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 9th December. The 11 news items which we have picked up from the Hindu are these. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, Centre unveils discount to fuel switch to digital mode. So government is encouraging cashless economy, cashless transactions. So to transmit or to move ahead towards a digital economy, now government has announced discounts. So various discounts like you can see here. One is discount on digital payment at fuel pumps run by state oil firms. So private sector companies, oil firms are not obliged to, but state oil firms will provide 0.75% discount if you pay for fuel, petrol, gas at by digital method. So by digital payment it will get this discount. Second is discount on suburban rail season on monthly tickets paid digitally, so 0.5% discount here. Then railway passengers buying tickets online will also get a free insurance up to 10 lakh. Then 8% discount on life insurance, 10% discount on general insurance from PSU firms. So this all have been put forth. Also no service tax on digital transactions up to rupees 2000. There's 10% discount for digital payment of toll on national highways. So all these are the initiatives proposed. Also all the farmers with Kisan credit card will also get RuPay debit cards now. So this is also on agenda. So all these are the initiatives which government is taking to ensure that encouragement is provided for digital transactions. So post the demonetization, as we see currency, cash crunch which we are seeing in the economy presently. So digital payments is the way ahead. So the government is trying to fulfill twin objectives of eradicating black money too and bringing in cashless economy as well. Then the next news item is triple talaq, a cruel and most demeaning form of divorce practiced by Muslim community. So this is Allahabad High Court, which on a judgment said that triple talaq is actually contrary to the spirit of the Holy Quran and what Prophet Muhammad preached. So it is that there is a misconception amongst a major section of Muslims that right to divorce, which is there with them, triple talaq, is that you just speak out the words talaq, 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 and talaq is done. So easily you can divorce a woman, your wife. So that is not actually true. So you can see the discussion. Actually this case is also going on in the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court is hearing on the matter of triple talaq, polygamy and divorce in courts for the Muslims. So presently the Allahabad High Court just gave its point of view and it said that we cannot go ahead further on it because this is a case before the Supreme Court as well. So triple talaq actually is not the ideal way of divorce even in Islam. So even the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which provided its affidavit before the Supreme Court in this matter, said that triple talaq is a sin. Triple talaq is considered a sin in Islam as well, but it is allowed. So it is based on precedence. So at one point of time when it was allowed, so according to that, so it is allowed today too. So Sharia law is dependent on that. So that what was allowed during that time, one instances, so these are taken as precedents and for further the way transactions or proceedings should take place are decided. So now triple talaq, actually the ideal way of triple talaq is that you should, the husband, if he wants to divorce the wife, he says talaq and then there is conciliation. The time frame for conciliation there when the two parties actually try to come together, eliminate their differences, and if still after that time frame too, after this conciliation too, it's again of a divorce is what the husband seeks, and again he speaks out talaq, again there is few months or so for conciliation, and after that again when he says finally talaq, that is the time when divorce is valid. So this is the ideal way, actual way of triple talaq, which is misuse. That speaking out the words 3 times means talaq is done. So one precedent has actually, which was at that time also called a sin. So this is the whole point, and All India Muslim Personal Law Board still adheres to this, that triple talaq is allowed under Islam, you cannot change it. And women groups, of course, they say that this is not good for the woman, and it does not mean that women cannot divorce men in Islam. So in Islam, triple talaq is the way men divorce women, and women can divorce through a khula. So khula is the term used when women want to divorce a man. So that is also allowed. Polygamy is another aspect. So polygamy also, it is said that All India Muslim Personal Law Board said that it is not desirable. Polygamy is not something which is desirable, but then it is allowed. So if there are instances it has been allowed, so it still has to be allowed. So these are their points of view. So even during the Supreme Court ruling, the Supreme Court said that these are not essential features of the religion, that which cannot be changed. So, if you don't, it's not like polygamy is something which you have to be practiced to be a Muslim, or triple talaq is the only way. It's actually a sinful way. So rather, if reforms are brought in, and reforms are brought in with consensus by bringing in board the Muslim community as well and working together, reforms would be acceptable too. So that we'll have to wait and see how that goes ahead. So of course it will take time. It cannot be done in a haste. The third point is divorce in courts. So women can go ahead and have divorce in courts, but then it says that women may be harmed by court proceedings. So this was All India Muslim Personal Laws Board point of view. It has no, I don't know. It says that she will publicly be accused if she goes in for divorce in courts. It has no standing. I don't want to discuss that. So anyway, so these are the three aspects on which the Supreme Court is looking into too. And presently even the High Court, Allahabad High Court, spoke out in the same spirit that divorce, triple talaq, the way it is practiced, is not allowed or not valid form even under Islam. So it's sinful form even under Islam. So this misconceptions which are there should be cleared first. So then we can go ahead. Then the next news item is Bohra women petition UN to stop female genital mutilation. So this female genital mutilation is a practice which is undertaken in many communities, and especially so it is known in African countries. So many African countries undertake this practice. This shows the percentage of women who undergo this. The darker the color, you can see here. So this practice, it's actually the genital organs, the sex organs between the legs. Over there, the clitoris is one organ in women, a small part which is mutilated or removed. So that is cut also. So this idea is that this is the organ which increases the libido of women. So libido of women basically means that sex desire of women. So it is believed that if this clitoris is removed, the sexual desire of women would come down. So with this conception, this act is practiced. Female genital mutilation is practiced in various communities when the girl comes of age. So 10-12 years of age, when she enters puberty. So this practice has to be stopped. So United Nations has initiated action against this, but this community, the Dawoodi Bohra community, which is a small community minority community in India as well, they are also a Muslim community. So women have come out in the open and they have petitioned before the United Nations saying that in India as well this act is committed, female genital mutilation, and there is an action required on this matter. So this is done under secrecy and silence. There is no official data of the government to bring a clarity on how many people are affected by this and what are the data regarding this. There is something called male circumcision. So male circumcision is practiced in Islam. It is mandatory in Islam. So that is called khatna. So this is a practice of removing the foreskin of the male sex organ, the penis. So this actually has some medical benefit. The health benefit of this is that it prevents infections. It also prevents transmission of some sexually transmitted diseases like HIV/AIDS. So this has health benefits, but World Health Organization says that female genital mutilation has no health benefits. So there is no ground on the basis of which this should be practiced. So it is, as it is stated, that it is basically to reduce the sexual pleasure of women. So this is the point. So this you can see. So we'll see what will be the United Nations viewpoint on this and how the Indian government takes up the issue. The next news item is a more muscular rice variety takes on wheat. So rice protein content is low. So rice protein content is 6 to 7.5% and wheat protein content is about 14%. So wheat has more protein. So rice is generally preferred by many sections in India as well. So many sections of population prefer rice. So that is why this University of Agricultural Science in Bengaluru has initiated a development or breeding process in which they have developed rice with high protein content. So this rice strain has 12 to 13% protein content. So they raise the amount of lysine, which is an amino acid. So amino acid is through which protein is synthesized. So this amino acid helps in synthesis of proteins, and this amount of lysine has been raised, because of which the percentage of protein has also raised in this rice variety. So this rice protein is beneficial too, because rice wheat protein is more easy to digest compared to animal proteins, so non-vegetarian proteins. Then the next news item is ancient Buddhist site comes alive with cultural programs after 2 millennia. So this is Anupu, a Buddhist site which has been excavated on the banks of river Krishna near Nagarjuna Sagar Dam. So this Nagarjuna Sagar Dam is actually on the border between Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So this Anupu site has been selected as to launch the cultural program of Infosys Foundation. So this place is important because any Buddhism related site is important for UPSC and especially for prelims. So this you should know. So this river, Krishna river, it presently forms this Nagarjuna Sagar Dam, actually forms is present at the border between Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. The two districts are Nalgonda and Guntur district. So it lies here, and this Anupu site has been reconstructed by the Archaeological Survey of India on an 80-hectare stretch which has been taken as such for this. Also, this Anupu was originally an ancient Buddhist university which was established by Acharya Nagarjuna, which was a Buddhist scholar. So the excavation here occurred when the dam was being built. So Nagarjuna Sagar Dam was built in 1950s and 60s. During that time, this site, Anupu site, was excavated. Then the next is, this is again shows the Buddhist sites in Andhra Pradesh. So Andhra Pradesh has many Buddhist sites. The most famous one is Amravati, here at number 15. Nagarjuna Konda is here, number 17. You can see at the border. This is Telangana with capital Hyderabad. Andhra Pradesh now has Amravati as its capital. The new capital is being built. Then other names are not very prominent, so you don't need to get into all the names and by heart all the names. Just what comes in news, what comes in front of you, at least remember those. So even by elimination later you may be able to attempt many questions, and these will be the prominent ones which generally UPSC asks. And if it is not asking prominent ones, those are the questions which you have to skip. You don't have to put in your mind behind studying all such names and trying to remember, recollect them, keep on revising them. It's a huge waste of time. There's a lot of such information which will be there. You can't try to attempt and recollect everything. So only important ones here, Amravati and Nagarjuna Konda, which you should remember. The next news item is High Court bans liquor in Chardham Hindu circuit, invokes Bihar. The Uttarakhand High Court has ordered the state government to bring in complete prohibition, means prohibition on sale, purchase, even consumption of liquor in 3 major districts, Rudraprayag, Chamoli and Uttarkashi in Uttarakhand. So these are the districts where the Chardham sites, important religious sites, Gangotri, Yamunotri, Badrinath and Kedarnath are located. So these are the 4 places. You can see this is the Uttarakhand map. So these are the 4 important Chardham sites, and these are in this Uttarkashi. This is a place too, and this is the district Uttarkashi, Rudraprayag and Chamoli, where they are located. So there will be complete prohibition. Presently the state government has banned sale of liquor in these places, but the Uttarakhand High Court is asking the state government to go further on this matter, taking inspiration. It mentions Bihar also, which has brought in total prohibition. So the term used is total prohibition, means complete prohibition, not just on sale, purchase, consumption, distribution, everything. So it has to work on this matter, because the High Court also says that there is an increasing consumption of alcohol amongst the younger generation too, and also for religious sites to maintain the religious sanctity. Also for Sikh religious sites too, the same order also talks of banning, prohibition on sale, purchase, distribution, consumption within the 5-kilometer radius of these gurudwaras which are located. So this action has to be taken by the government. It has to issue an order on this matter within a week. So these are regarding prohibition. The High Court now taking the initiative as well. Then the next news item is Varda. Varda hits Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Tourists remain stranded. So this is cyclonic storm Varda, which has struck in Andaman. So it is a depression over the Andaman Sea, because of which this cyclone has erupted. So cyclone has low pressure at the center, so that is called the depression. So this is the map of Andaman and Nicobar Islands too. So majorly it is the Havelock Island where these tourists are stranded. So there is flood-like situation which is seen presently, and there is heavy rainfall which has caused this. So this you can see is the islands too: North Andaman, Middle Andaman and South Andaman, the three major islands here. Havelock Island is here. Beyond this, Barren Island is up here, which is also having a volcanic, it's a volcanic island. Then this is the Duncan Passage. Also UPSC asks you questions on passages between the islands too. So Duncan Passage is here between South Andaman and Little Andaman. Then comes the Nicobar Island. So between Andaman and Nicobar group of islands is this 10-degree channel. This was a question in UPSC prelims 2-3 years back, few years back. So this is there. So Little Andaman and Car Nicobar. Then comes the Nicobar group of islands. So this is Sombero Channel 2 between Car Nicobar Islands and Little Nicobar Island. Then comes Great Nicobar Island and the southernmost tip of India, Indira Point, which is there on Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So this is there. So mainland India, southernmost tip is further up close to the equator, and this is above the equator, and this is nearer to the equator. So the equator is below here. Tropic of Cancer passes through India. So this is the Indira Point, closest to the equator, southernmost point. Then the next news item is UN panel finds torture continuing in Sri Lanka. So this is United Nations Committee Against Torture, which has said that instances of torture in Sri Lanka still continue. The CID, Crimes Investigation Department, is accused of having these white vans which come and abduct Tamils. The Tamils are a minority in Sri Lanka. We have also seen all this in detail, so I will not repeat it here about LTTE and the war against LTTE, which ended in 2009 with elimination of this terrorist group in Sri Lanka. So it was fighting for the minorities' rights of the Tamils in Sri Lanka. So Sinhala is the majority community there. So even bringing in equality or relative equality for these community was the purpose, but then it was a war. They had taken up arms. It was a terrorist organization. It even used humans as shields. It used children as soldiers. So of course it had also committed atrocities, and even Sri Lankan government committed atrocities, especially in the last phase of the war during 2008-9 when this civil war was going on, and finally LTTE was eliminated. So after this, the government also formed this Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. So this was formed in 2010 and it gave its report also in 2011, but then it was just not much done. It blamed majorly the LTTE for all the crimes committed. So this was also considered as an eyewash, and just to avoid international scrutiny on the matter, the government itself had set up this commission. But then presently too, it is seen even in 2016 right now that people from this Tamil community are abducted in white vans, and they are then questioned about people from their family relatives who are missing and where are they. So the government is still apprehensive whether there will be a re-eruption of any such grouping or something. So that's why they take such stern actions, and United Nations Committee Against Torture is raising its voice against the kind of torture and counter-terrorism laws which Sri Lanka has, which violates basic human rights. So that is the point highlighted here. So it also highlights the positive developments which we also have seen in news presently, that the Sri Lankan constitution, newly formed constitution, is including provisions on federalism and all those aspects. So that is good that these initiatives are also being taken, but then the negatives also are highlighted. Then the next news item is Labour Ministry kept in the dark over made up sectors labour reform package. So the Union Cabinet has decided that for textile and apparel, means made up sectors means manufacturing sectors, especially textile and apparels, here workers earning less than 15,000 a month will not be made part of EPF. So for them it will be optional. employee provident fund. So under employee provident fund, contribution has to be made by the employer as well as the employee, and this provident fund is maintained, which is an old age security. So that is important for security post retirement. So this EPF is then a deduction on the part of the workers too, which for in the short term they don't like it, that there are deductions made from their salary. An employer also has to make equal contributions. So of course employer also feels this as an additional burden. So EPF becoming optional means it will become easier for the sector to function. So to make it attractive for them, the government initiates such proposals. Presently it has said that we are extending it to made up manufacturing sector too. So this decision for textile and apparel workers was taken in June 2016. And now the cabinet has extended it to made up manufacturing sectors like towels, bed sheets, all these related to textiles only. So these made up manufacturing sector will also have this provision effective. So labor ministry is saying that we don't know about this, we were not taken into we were not taken into confidence before coming to this conclusion. So this will require an amendment. So an amendment to the act, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1952 will have to be amended, because this act makes it mandatory for all factories employing 20 or more workers to have compulsory contribution of 12% each by the employee as well as the employer towards EPF. So this is compulsory. So of course this has drawn flag too, because this is the movement towards a pensionable society, that after retirement too there is sufficient money available with the people to take care of them during old age. So this is the basis of pensions. So if this pension scheme is made optional, EPF is made optional, then how do you bring in a pensionable society? So it goes against the purpose, the essential principle of EPF. So what are you providing for the future? So as for the short term gain of making it attractive. So this is the question put forth by critics as well. So nothing has been done. This is still at the Union Cabinet stage. No amendment, no initiation of an amendment has taken place. So we'll wait what happens on this matter too. Then the next news item is giraffes facing extinction over devastating decline. Experts warn. So this is coming from the report of the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. So it comes out with its red list. So this is red list comprising of various species which are threatened and undergoing decline. So this covers all plant as well as animal species. So both flora and fauna are covered under this red list, and this present latest red list analysis says that the giraffe population has gone down to such an extent that in the last 30 years it has jumped to IUCN categories. So IUCN categorizes species based on their extinction risk. So this you can see from least concern, then near threatened to vulnerable. These three are threatened categories: vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, then extinct in the wild, and completely extinct. So presently the news is that the analysis is that from giraffe from least concern category has gone into vulnerable category now. So in 30 years. Then other important point which is made is regarding the birds also. All international trade in bird species has been banned since October 2016, but still many bird species are also still in demand and are hunted and taken as pet as well. Plus it also talks of many new bird species also being recognized and enumerated, but then before they are enumerated many of them even go extinct. So 700 newly recognized bird species were added, but then 30 of these are already extinct. So this is also there, the threat which species both plant and animal face. And in plant species it is the first time in this report that it has included 233 wild varieties of crop plants. So various crop plants like mango and other plants, they have their wild varieties. So these wild varieties are also being affected. So an assessment of them has been done for the first time. So examples of mangoes, sunflowers, food crops, all these are important because they are storehouse of genetic material. So these genetic material would be lost, which can be used to breed new varieties later. So to take care of the fast growing population of the world. So this is important. If these species get lost, then the capability of these plant species to withstand climate change and pests will be difficult. So that's why this is also important, and analysis is being done, assessment for the first time here. Then it is also talking of eastern gorilla and whale shark. They are moving closer to extinction. Then it says about giant panda, that giant panda's condition is improvement. It was on the path to extinction, but now it has been, the steps have been taken to safeguard it. Then it also talks of rediscovery of few species which were considered lost earlier. So that is fine. And it also had earlier said, and which said that wild creatures are on a track to fall by 2/3. So 2/3 of the wild species will be lost by 2020 compared to 1970. So wild species, wild creatures are undergoing decrease in population at a huge extent. This is because of the farmland being undertaken even in forest areas, mining being undertaken, pollution, so hunting of animal species. So this has affected the animals drastically. Then the next news item is, and the last one, wrapping food items in newspapers a health hazard. So this is the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, FSSAI, which has asked and issued an advisory saying that use of newspapers, which is used as an absorbent paper for packing food items, a common practice by street vendors and some small hotels as well too. So this is slowly poisoning Indians because there are cancer causing agents present in the newspaper ink which can contaminate the food. So there is a need to initiate an awareness campaign on this matter, and this exercise has to be stopped. So that is it. These are the news items for today. Thank you so much.